Well, welcome to this week's edition of the City Update. I'm your host, Mark Aaron, Multimedia Design Manager for the City of Danville. Today we're down at the crossing at the dam, the Danville Science Center, and we're celebrating International GIS Day. Of course, GIS stands for Geographic Information System. It's basically taking information and plotting those on a map and utilizing that mapping technology in a variety of different ways. Most of our city departments utilize GIS on a daily basis here in the City of Danville. And over the past 5 years, our IT department and our GIS coordinator has really taken the opportunity during International GIS Day to open the eyes to a lot of our youngsters here in the community to GIS. Today we'll have 150 kids come to the Danville Science Center to learn more about GIS. We'll have individuals from the National Forestry Service on hand to talk about the way they utilize GIS. Of course, our city will be represented here with Melissa talking to the kids about how she uses GIS. We'll also have some individuals from our local geocaching group that will, Southside Geocachers, will talk to our kids more about this new sport that's really taking off here in our community. Geocaching, really, what you do, you log onto a website that we'll talk about on the show a little later. You get a username, ID, and you get information on where caches are hidden in the city of Danville. And you use your GPS device to find these different caches, so it's really a great treasure hunt, a great family sport. We'll learn a lot more about that on today's show. But first, let's head inside now and talk to our GIS coordinator and the one who spearheads the efforts here for International GIS Day here in the city of Danville, and that's Melissa Dabbs. Melissa, how many years have we been celebrating GIS Day here in the city?
This is number 5.
Very good. And every year we've been here at the Danville Science Center, is that correct? Or we've changed locations throughout the years?
No, we started out visiting schools individually, and that was a lot of work, and we couldn't get to as many people. So back in 2009, we talked to the Science Center, and they agreed to help us expand the event.
Wonderful. Now, how many kids are coming out to the event this year?
150 this year. We're really excited.
That's great. And you've got local 5th graders? I know one group was 5th grade. Do you have a variety of ages? Or
We had some 5th graders. We've had 6th, 7th, and 8th from Epiphany School, so that was a mixed group. Great. And then we're going to have some 2nd graders this afternoon.
Oh, that'll be fun. They'll really enjoy it, because that's probably the youngest you've had at a day.
Ever.
Is that correct?
Ever, yes.
Well, they'll really get a kick out of it. Now, let's give our viewers a little insight into what these kids are experiencing today when it comes to GIS. Of course, GIS, Geographic Information Systems, we kind of give our viewers an update on what actually that is every year for our viewers who may not have seen previous episodes. So, Geographic Information Systems, explain that in layman's terms what it is.
Well, it all starts with maps, and a number of city departments use maps every day, but we make the maps smart. So by including information about, it can be property, it can be zoning, it can be for the fire department, their pre-plan information. And we take a lot of data and we tie it to the map, and then we display it in a way that makes sense, that makes it easy to use. And almost all the city departments use those maps in some way every day.
And the software that we use has a lot of different layers and that you can add to get a variety of different maps maybe on one computer screen.
They do. And so people use them at their desk, or if they're out in the field doing work, they have laptops in their vehicles.
So I think is it about every department utilizes GIS in some form or fashion?
Just about, especially with recent changes. We've started using some work order management software called CityWorks, and that has really moved the maps into nearly every department.
Great. Can you explain that a little bit for our viewers, some of the departments that may have picked that up recently that may have not used GIS in the past?
So utilities, the Power and Light Division, they're using work orders in CityWorks, and Public Works. So Public Works had a limited GIS group before, but now that more people are having to do work orders and service requests directly in CityWorks, a lot of times that's tied to the map or includes a printout of where they're working.
Great. So if a citizen calls in and says, I need my street paved or something, I'd like to have my street paved, they can go in, map that area, and then that goes out into the individuals that are actually doing the work in the field, and they have laptops now, I think, that they use in the field. So it's a great way, a great tool that we can utilize in the city.
It is. It's supposed to make us work more smarter, and to be more effective and efficient.
Now, let's talk a little about what some of the kids are experiencing today. Tell me about the different stations. We're actually going to take our cameras to all the stations on today's show and talk to some of the individuals, but just give us an overview before we head out to the different stops.
Okay, so my activity station today starts out with Find Your Home. So we have a huge map with the orthophotography on it and street names and house numbers, and we try to find each student's address, find their house. Great. And then we also give them a video introduction to GIS, and we've got some activities. We're trying to engage everyone. We've got some puzzles and paper activities, for the students to work through. And then when they leave from here, they can visit the forestry, and that's actually part of the larger Science Center exhibit on tree habitats.
Oh, great.
So
And this is the first year we've had somebody from the U.S. Forestry Division. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And he has an amazing setup and the maps that he uses, and to show that it's part of a lot of careers. And then the Science on a Sphere for the Science Center, that is another great exhibit, and that's available all the time to the public, where you actually see live data placed on a 3D globe in motion. It's interesting. And then the last one is geocaching, which is really exciting. It's a upcoming and popular hobby for a lot of people in the area.
And that's great for families to get out into the community and find these caches. We're going to talk to, I guess, the president of the Southside Geocachers Club that's been formed here recently. They're having a great time with that, and I think that'll be something that the viewers will really want to tune in to see, because that's a new sport that's really taken off here in the community, and it's utilizing GIS.
It is, and it's easy. It's easy to learn how to do. It's inexpensive. Most people already have the technology on their smartphones.
Right.
And it's just, like you say, gets people outside, gets families doing things, and there are hundreds of caches right here in Danville, so try it.
Yeah, very good. Well, Melissa, thanks again for joining us this year, and thanks for all you do putting the GIS Day on here in the city for the kids. I think it's a great learning tool, and it's great for the citizens to get a better understanding of how we utilize GIS every day in the city as well. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, and thank you to the Science Center for letting us use your place.
As an example of what you can use it for in an urban area that has to do with forestry, I was on part of a team that went down to Baton Rouge to survey the trees after Hurricane Gustav to see how many trees that were along the city streets that were dying or about to fall in the road that the city would have to remove after the storm. All right, and so every one of those little green dots represents a tree that we said had a broken limb that might fall on somebody's parked car or in the street that needed to be removed from the tree. All the red dots were trees that were broken or cracked in some way, and the whole tree needed to be removed and replaced with another tree. All right, and we did that by walking the streets with a GPS unit that has a computer in it. This part right here is the satellite that communicates with the satellite. This is the antenna that communicates with the satellites. All right, so we would stand next to the tree and tally what type of tree it was. It would record with the satellite exactly where we were standing, and we would put in there, 3 limbs that need to be removed. And so we gave the city the data after we were done, and this is what we did in 1 week's time. We had all this data that showed them on these streets where the trees were actually located and how much work needed to be done. That way they could figure out how much money they needed to recover from the storm on their street tree.
Joining me now is Drew Arn, who's a forester with the Department of Forestry. And Drew, just interviewed some of the kids here today at GIS, and having a great time at GIS Day here in the city of Danville. And why did you all decide to come out and share with these children a little bit about how you utilize GIS?
Well, the GIS department here in Danville gave us a call and wanted to know if we'd be interested in doing it, and we kind of discussed how this would work out. Plus, we were interested in the display that they have here at the Science Center and some of the things that have to do with forestry and the utilization of renewable resources. Yeah. So we said, what the heck, we'll come and tell them how we use GIS on a day-to-day basis in our job and the different applications that are used, that foresters need to use GIS. And I'd like to go around to the other stations, but I don't know if I'll get a chance to. Maybe I will as the day goes on.
Well, tell me, what's been the feedback from some of the kids? What have they enjoyed most about learning about GIS from you all and the way you utilize it?
Well, I think it's an interesting concept for kids. They don't normally think about things looking from above in a spatial relationship. Most of the time people think about you turn at the red house, you turn at this store, you go this direction to get here, but they don't think about things how they relate on a map, north, south, east, and west. And so when you look at things in a data layer as a GIS, basically as a map, you can understand how things relate to each other a little better. And so looking at an aerial photograph, for the most part, anytime a person does that for the first time, it's kind of mind-boggling how small a house is, where the roads go and how things relate to each other. So it's kind of neat to see them kind of click and really figure out what's going on there.
When you're talking about aerial photography, I know you shared some photographs with the children, but you said that citizens across the county and in the city come to see you and wanting to utilize some of that aerial photography that you have dating back maybe 60 years or so.
Right. We have some photographs from 1954, I think 1964, some date in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And engineering firms use that when they're doing an environmental impact statement. Anytime they're doing some sort of historical look at a property, trying to figure out previous use, maybe what was on the land before they go to build something new, our photographs are probably the oldest they're going to be able to find around.
Now, for our viewers who may not realize what a forester does, besides utilizing GIS, of course, every day, tell me a little bit about the day-to-day operations there in Chatham for the Department of Forestry.
Okay. We get anything from somebody calling that has a sick tree in their yard, want to know what's wrong with it, to, I have 300 acres of forest. Is it ready to be harvested for lumber or paper yet? So basically from an individual tree to the whole forest. And a lot of my job has to do with administering cost share funds for tree planting projects. Obviously, it's an activity that the government promotes.
Yes.
So we help people pay for tree planting projects or help them line up contractors to get the work done, whether it be afforestation, planting an open field, or reforestation where an area has been harvested.
Okay.
And, of course, managing the trees, keeping them healthy as they're growing, diagnosing any disease problems or things as they go on. Big thing, of course, is protecting that forest, and that would be from forest fires. We also act as firefighters. So when the call comes, we change hats and turn the siren on and go to a fire and fight forest fires.
And you do that not only in our region, you've been called out to other parts of the country as well, right?
Right. We work basically wherever we're needed, and most of the states, especially in the South, have agreements with one another. If it gets bad in Texas, they'll call Virginia. If it gets bad in Florida, they'll call around. And so they all have agreements with one another that we can send workers back and forth, and pretty seamless.
And you work not only with the county, but the individuals in the city as well can give you all a call and work with you as well
Sure.
on tree planting projects and things of that nature?
Actually, just recently, a grant through us from the U.S. Forest Service was used to plant a bunch of trees in Ballou Park.
Oh, great.
And what we're doing is trying to, many of the trees that are there are mature, beginning to be a problem, a hazard. And so we're trying to diagnose those trees and see that in the near future, there's going to be a lot less trees in that park. So they're trying to plant trees of a similar species and get them on up in size a little bit before the other ones need to be removed.
Well, Drew, thanks so much for coming on the show this week and for taking the time to spend time with the children here in the city of Danville on International GIS Day and giving them a little insight into how you all utilize GIS. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. It's been a great day, and looking forward to the rest of the day.
Well, joining me now is Keith McCoy, who's the president of the Southside Geocachers Group here in the city of Danville. And I know, Keith, tell me a little bit about what you're teaching the kids today during International GIS Day about geocaching.
Well, geocaching is a sport that we enjoy here in the city of Danville, and we use handheld GPSs, and the impact that it has is it allows the students to get a spatial awareness of where we're at in the world today. And by using handheld GPSs and using geocache as a tool, we're trying to help them get a hands-on example of what GIS is all about.
And it really gets, it's a family-friendly sport. Anybody
sure
can
is.
play, and it really gets the kids out and about in the community, maybe even learning about different areas of the city they've never been in before. But tell me a little bit about how you hide a cache and find a cache.
Well, as geocachers, we try to pick a historical spot, a scenic spot, a spot that might have some significance to the city. And a good example is the Dan Daniels Trail. We've got a lot of caches hidden along the trail. People walk by every day. And what we try to do is place a cache in such a way that it's an adventure for the family to go out and find. And every cache is family-friendly, kid-friendly. It's made to give people an opportunity to get out and enjoy the great outdoors.
Now, what are some of the caches that are hidden here in the city?
Well, we've got smaller caches that are 35-millimeter canisters. We've got some larger caches, what I call lock and lock boxes. We've got ammunition boxes that are hidden out in the woods. And the idea is you find the cache, you sign your name on the log sheet, go back on the computer, and give yourself credit for making a find.
Very good. And then there are some little trinkets maybe along the way that the kids may enjoy finding. It's not just writing your name. You can also maybe find a treasure.
Well, it is called a treasure hunt, and because of that, we put what we call swag or tradables inside this cache. And if you take something that you'd like to have in your collection, we ask you to put something back so the next cacher can have something to find.
Very good. Now, if I wanted to get started in geocaching, I need to log on to a particular website and I guess get a username and get started?
Well, I promote geocaching.com.
Okay.
and that says it all. You type in geocaching.com, establish you a free account, absolutely free, get you a GPS, start downloading your caches that you want to go find, and it's all in the hunt. That's the name of the game.
So basically on the website, the coordinates are given to you. You plug them into your GPS, and then you head out.
Right. And what you do then is once you got your coordinates plugged in, you hit go to. The handy little machine will tell you exactly where to go, and when you get close to it, it goes down to ground zero, and you know to start looking for the cache.
Now, if you don't have a GPS at home, I know Parks, Recreation, and Tourism allows you to rent those. For free. You can go and try them out.
That's right. They've got 4 of them on hand that you're welcome to come in and use. Go to the Senior Citizens Park and Recreation Center, sign the sheet, and they'll let you use it all day long.
Now, how many caches do you think we have hidden in the city of Danville?
That's a good question. We've got over 350 in the city of Danville right now alone, more than people realize, and most of the caches are placed in such a way to highlight what we have in the city of Danville. We've got a lot of good assets in the city of Danville. We've got the museums, we've got the Dan Daniels Trail, we've got the Ringo Rails Trail, caches all along the way that you pass every day and don't even know they're there.
And if you want to expand outside the city limits, they're hidden all across the country.
We've got 1,500,000 caches worldwide. There's not a spot on this world that you could go to and not find a cache. They're everywhere.
Well, if you'd like to get more information about geocaching, you can log on to the geocaching.com website or head over to Parks, Recreation, and Tourism and pick you up a GPS and go out for the day and experiment a little bit, and I'm sure you'll get hooked because it's a great sport.
It's a lot of fun, and I hope to see you guys out on the trail one day.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, so has anybody ever seen anything like this before? Yeah? Well, right now there are less than 100 of them in the entire world. And Danville is fortunate enough to have one of them. It's called A Science on a Sphere. And basically what that means is imagine that you are at home watching TV, playing on the internet, playing a game, using a Wii. You are learning and seeing stuff on a two-dimensional object, a flat screen. This is a three-dimensional object, a sphere. You can take that same data, same information, same game, same video, and wrap it around this object. It uses a Wii remote, just like what you guys know, just like what you guys play with. I can take this Wii remote, watch this, using it, and turn your world upside down. I can counter-rotate it. So, there's all different kinds of things we can do with this. You take any type of information that you collect, whether it be data from research or experiments, information that you've recorded or pulled from the websites or from the internet. You take all that information, and what do you want to do with it? You could put it in a graph. You could put it in a bar graph or a line graph. But let's say you want to take it and put it on a map so you can see where this information comes from and what it means. That's what you do with GIS. You can do it on a map like what you did downstairs, or you can do it on a three-dimensional object like what we're getting ready to do here, a sphere. So, how is this data collected? Well, in the case of this sphere, in the Earth, the data is collected from satellites. Satellites, there are some satellites that are 22,000 miles above the Earth and do not move. There are other satellites that are only about 450 miles above the Earth and move with the Earth, called polar orbiting satellites. I'll give you a second to look at it, check it out. You obviously see it's a model of the Earth, the globe, but you see all these yellow things moving around, going from place to place. What do you think those yellow things are? People. Yes, sir. Thank you for raising your hand. People. Indirectly, it's people, a bunch of people in a hollow object that flies around. What am I talking about? No. Somebody said it. Airplanes. You are exactly right. In one 24-hour period, look how many airplanes span the surface of the Earth. Every one of those little yellow dots represents an airplane. So, this type of information is collected for obvious reasons, to find out what airports are more active than others, which areas in the atmosphere or up in the sky are more congested with air traffic travel. If you notice that a lot of them go to certain points, certain places. What do you think those certain places where all these things are coming and going are? Airports, right? Airports. Okay. Not only can it show you airplanes, hold your question to the end. I'll answer it, okay? Not only can it show you airplanes, but what do you think this shows you? And I'll give you a hint. If you can't figure it out, you notice the land is outlined in white and none of it goes over land. So that should tell you what this represents. Water. Well, what moves in water? Ships. You are exactly right. These are major shipping routes all over the world. These are the shipping routes that your shoes probably came to the United States on, or your clothes came to the United States on. These same routes, the red routes, or the areas in red outlined, are the more popular or more heavily traveled routes for all these shipping containers. This one here labels the main shipping routes. Like you have the Panama Canal over here between North and South America. You have the Cape of Good Hope on the southern tip of Africa. You have the Strait of Magellan in South America. The greens and the yellows are not so heavily traveled routes. The reds represent the more traveled routes.
Well, joining me now is one of the students that took part in GIS Day here at the Danville Science Center. It's Julie Presley, who's a sixth grader at Epiphany School here in the city of Danville. And Julie, did you have a fun time here today at GIS?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of the things you may have learned about GIS that you didn't know before you came today.
I learned that the caching, I did not know they had that.
Cool. Do you think that may be a sport you might take up with you and your family, maybe?
Yes.
Very good. Now, tell me, did you know what GIS was before you came to the Science Center here today?
No.
So tell me, what is GIS? Can you tell our viewers?
Geography,
Information.
information system.
Very good. Now, did you find your home on the map here in the room?
Yes.
Was that kind of cool? Now, did you learn some different ways that we utilize GIS here in the community that you may remember?
Kind of.
What are some of the ways that we use GIS?
Like
That's okay.
if someone's like for firefighters and
Right.
stuff.
So they'll know where to go to fight the fire. They have laptops in their fire engines now, so they can have a better understanding of the building that they're going to fight a fire in before they get there. They utilize GIS. Ms. Presley, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm glad you had a great time.
Thank you.
Joining me now is Meredith Swain, who's a teacher at the Epiphany School here and brought a lot of her students out to GIS Day here at the Danville Science Center. And Meredith, tell me a little bit about the feedback you've received from your students on how much they enjoy GIS Day here.
Well, it's interesting because each student picked something different that they liked.
Right.
So, and these are topics that we don't get to really explore in the classroom because they're outside the classroom, obviously, like
Right.
forestry and
Yeah.
geocaching, things like that. So, but no, I think they really enjoyed it and were able to learn something or maybe even pick up a new hobby.
Yeah, learning a little bit about geocaching. I think every student that I interviewed mentioned that. So I think that's a new sport that's catching on, and maybe some of your students will be taking part in it this weekend.
Yeah, we have a few that actually have already done it before, so
That's
they were
great.
pretty pumped to hear about it some more. So.
Well, it's great to hear that they actually had a wide variety of things that they can learn about when it comes to GIS, because it's utilized in such a variety of different things in our everyday life that some of the students may not realize.
Exactly, and I think we got to look at the map of Danville, and the students got to find their houses, and a lot of them really like, oh, that's my house, that looks just like it, and we got to hear about how it's used politically and for safety reasons as well, and looking at what the fire department sees when they pull up our houses. So I think it made it much more real world today.
Well, thank you so much for allowing your children to come out and experience this day with us. We really appreciate that, and thanks for coming on this week's show with us.
All right, well, thank you.
Well, joining me now is Jack Garrett, who's a sixth grader at the Epiphany School. And Jack, tell me a little bit about what you learned about GIS here today.
We went downstairs and learned about geocaching.
Very good. Have you ever been geocaching before?
No.
Is that something you think would be pretty cool maybe you could do with your family?
Yeah.
Cool. Did you know that there were so many caches that were hidden all across the city of Danville?
No.
Did you go up and see the sphere, Science on a Sphere? What did you think about that?
I thought it was really cool because you could see like where the turtles migrated and where the hurricanes were and the boats traveled over.
Now, Jack, were there certain things that we can utilize GIS in here at the city that you learned about today that you can share with our viewers?
That the fire department can track your house by a website that they can zoom in as far as they can so they can see their fires.
Well, Jack, thanks so much for joining us today, and I'm glad you had a good time here at GIS Day.
Thank you.
We're now joined by Madison Carasino, who's an 8th grader at the Epiphany School. And Madison, we've been kind of asking all the students today, what are some of the fun things that you learned about GIS here at the Science Center today?
I learned about geocaching. I learned that it's kind of a new sport that I think kids can get into. It's kind of like treasure hunting, and I enjoy that stuff. So
cool. Do you think that may be something you look into doing in the future?
I think it's something that if I wanted something different to do, I might try again.
Kind of get you out and about in the community and learn some new things, right?
Yes, sir.
What else did you learn about GIS and the way that we use GIS here in our community?
That it's not just for maps. You can place, different animals and where they're going, boats, airplanes, not people's houses, not just, a road map.
Very good. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with GPS devices in your parents' cars at home, and it's kind of similar to that, isn't it?
I think in some ways, yes.
Yeah. How so?
I think the difference between a normal map is that you don't necessarily get as detailed as you do with, a GIS map.
There's a lot more layers involved with GIS, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
Madeline, thank you so much for joining us today, and glad you had a great time and learned a little bit today here at the Science Center.
All right, thank you.
That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the City Update. If you'd like to learn more about the way we utilize GIS within our city operations, you can log on to our website and go to our IT department. There's a lot of great information on the ways that we utilize GIS here in the city of Danville through our many departments in the city. So until next week, have a great day.